we're they're insulting us and we pay for the privilege for them to do so. So since we brought up Star Wars, that was topics I was talking about. What the hell is going on with Star Wars? It's just like
I don't even want to talk about
I
it.
just
I'm just
like
kidding.
the oversaturation is obvious that there's
Yeah,
too much Star Wars, and so it dilutes the product.
yeah,
Like I don't know about you, but I enjoyed the Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and I remember
yeah. I did
watching
too.
the finale of season 2 and thinking this seems like a series finale. Like the show should end here. Like where do they go from
I
here?
agree.
I was right. Season 3 was absolute dog shit, and I was like, yeah, that should have ended. Like, what are they trying to do here?
It was very strange. So with the Mandalorian suffers in so many different ways. Like season one, fantastic, and what made season one so good is exactly what made season three so awful. It's the fact that season one, um, it was just about a space cowboy. It
Mhm.
was just a western, a sci-fi western about a cool ass fucking space cowboy on
So
his
cool.
quest with a
It
little
was so
child.
cool.
It was amazing. Not only that, but there was real artistry behind the cinematography because Greg Fraser and one other person whose name I unfortunately forget did the cinematography for the first season of Mandalorian. And Greg Fraser is known for his work cinematography for Dune and The Batman with Robert Pattinson, and he's also known as the inventor of the volume, which is like the replacement for the green screen that all of
Oh,
Hollywood is using now, like these big LED screens that like
mm,
move with the camera. It's really cool. But there was real artistry behind the first season, but like on a narrative level and on a cinematic level. And then season two is a little less that. Season two is when we started getting fucking cameo galore, and I enjoyed season two, but it just became a little fucking much. Like Boba Fett here, fucking the other Mandalorians. I forgot her name, whatever her name is.
Bo Katan,
Bo
or
Katan here,
yeah.
Luke Skywalker there.
So
You know what I mean?
So one of my biggest complaints about Star Wars is the heavy ass reliance on nostalgia. And like it's which you're right, which made season 1 so refreshing because it's like, hey, there's a whole galaxy out here. There's tons of stories we can tell in this
Mhm.
universe. And it's a risk, true, but you can knock some out of the
Yeah,
park. Now, I
yeah.
did like the Luke Skywalker one because that
Mhm.
closed the story as far as I was concerned. Like Luke Skywalker shows up at
Yeah,
the end and closes the story. I'm cool with that. But I didn't
yeah.
need to see
Agreed.
Boba Fett. I never got the obsession with Boba Fett anyway. I never like to this
Me neither.
day. I have no clue why Boba Fett was popular. Like I remember watching Star Wars, and a lot of my friends like, "Oh, Boba Fett's cool." It's like he has like 5 lines in the movie, and he dies like a bitch.
Yeah,
Like what's so
yeah,
cool about this guy? I
yeah.
don't get it.
It never made sense to me either. Yeah, for sure. I didn't understand Boba Fett's and it's well, I really do love Tamora Morrison who plays this, the Boba Fett. I
Yeah,
thought it
nothing
was,
against the
and so I was
actor. The
excited for his
character is
show to
just
come
like
out. But it's just like he's he was never that cool, and him dying.
no. This
It's
is
funny because I went back and saw the original trilogy. I was like, is the guy that like has been the most popular Star Wars character this whole time?
he literally has like
That
five
was weird.
lines. Like I mean that's it. And gets killed by a blind Han Solo or some shit. Like it's insane. And so
Yeah.
also you mentioned the Rise of Skywalker, which listen, for like 20 years now, basically,
Mm,
roughly, I've said that Attack of the Clones is the worst film I've ever seen. I think it is just like
wow.
it's irredeemable. And I always say it's the worst because people don't like the Phantom Menace. The Phantom Menace is boring. Like, yeah, I'll give you
It
that.
is.
It's boring. But Attack of the Clones is what is the plot of Attack of the Clones? I always ask people, can you tell me what the plot of that movie is? And people are like, I remember like
Yeah.
Padme and Anakin on a planet somewhere, and Obi-Wan's investigating. So like,
Yeah.
who knows? The plot is just like it's just a setup for the third movie. It's ridiculous. But bro,
That's true.
got some heavy competition from the Rise of Skywalker. That
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
atrocious. Just like no
Yeah.
excuse for that shit. I'll ask you what you think about the prequel or the sequels, but I'll give my opinion on it. Is that I was excited for the
Mhm.
sequels, like a lot of people were, and I actually
Right.
liked the Force Awakens. I liked it. The complaints
Yeah.
that it was a retread of New Hope, yeah, I get it, but it was kind of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it thing, fine. Like it was a
Yeah.
fun watch. I also
Yeah.
like The Last Jedi. And I like The
Agreed.
Last Jedi because of what we're talking about, the nostalgia thing. Because
Mhm.
everyone's talking about, oh, who are Rey's parents? Is she a
Yeah,
Skywalker? Is she a Kenobi? Like, where is she from? And it's like, she's a nobody. Like, I love that. The universe does
I
not
enjoyed that as
revolve
well.
around four families. Like, we can do something
Mhm.
new. And then they
Yeah,
just threw it all out the window because no one knew what they were doing. Rise of Skywalker, like, but fuck you. But what are
yeah.
your opinions on the sequel?
It's literally the same thing as you were. Like I
Oh my
just the
god,
first one
I'm so humble. I'm
passable.
so honored. I go so honored. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, dude, because it's like no, you hit everything on the head. The first one, it's passable, and for me, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't even necessarily think of it as like a New Hope retread because I'd never been that attached to the original trilogy.
Mm,
I've seen it. I thought it
yeah.
was cool, but I'm a 2000s kid. I was born in 2000. I grew up with the prequels, and say what you want to say about them. They were bad films, like on an objective scale, but I grew up with them. They're my Star Wars, so they have a special place in my heart. But I haven't necessarily feel the same way about the original trilogy. So I really like the sequel. The first, the Force Awakens. I thought it was nice. I didn't I didn't like at all how it felt like the trailers had set up Finn to be this monumental sort of new
It's so
Jedi character.
it's
And then he's
unbelievable.
just and there's like this idea of him being an ex-stormtrooper, which I thought was really, really cool and worth exploring. And then they went fucking nowhere with it
It's
in any of the movies at all. And so we like to say that and so for the second one, like the Last Jedi, I am a Ryan Johnson lover. I loved Looper and I loved his Knives Out series. And I do like The Last Jedi, but I feel like in order to like combat the spread of like anti-intellectualism in like the fans that hate The Last Jedi, a lot of people have gone like overcorrected and claimed that The Last Jedi is some sort of like superior masterpiece. It's a great film, but it also suffers a lot. I think Ryan Johnson had an opportunity to explore that whole ex stormtrooper thing with Finn and didn't. As a matter of fact, Ryan Johnson fumbled with Finn just as much. And
oh
I'm
yeah,
tired of
true.
people
That's a
pretending
good
he
point.
didn't.
True.
He fumbled with Finn just as much as whatever the fuck is the other director's name was. And so
J.J. Abrams.
Abrams, yeah, he fumbled. It's like I hate when people just throw it at the feet of Abrams, like, oh, Abrams failed Finn. Johnson failed Finn too, but Johnson subverted a lot of things really well. I love the Snoke reveal being like, and then like Kylo being the fucking bad guy, and like it's the best looking Star Wars film ever, hands down. I don't think it's between that and Rogue One for like the best looking Star Wars films, and I don't think anybody can even argue that. And then we get to the Rise of Skywalker, and what is there to even say about this
Well,
non-film,
it's
this
I
non-movie?
it was it was insulting. Like it was
Yeah,
insulting. Like I just like listen. I'm not expecting Citizen Kane when I go in to see The Rise of Skywalker. I got it, all right. But you know, I remember the commercials and the trailers and stuff, and it had Palpatine
Mhm.
laughing, and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "All right, listen.
Yeah,
They need to have a damn good, not a good reason, a damn good
it,
reason to bring back
yeah,
Palpatine."
an
And
unbelievably good
they didn't
reason
even try with a half-ass reason.
at
Like they
all.
just
I
nope, it's
didn't even.
Palpatine. And what sucks so much about the Palpatine thing? First, the insult like, oh, actually, I'm Ray's grandfather. It's like, okay, that ruined the whole thing that I liked about the
Yeah,
Force not being
fuck the whole
related to
setup up.
the same people. But also is that it ruined Anakin Skywalker's character too. Like his whole thing as the
Yeah,
chosen one was the fact that he defeated that. Nope, turns out he didn't. Turns out like
no,
the Emperor outlived him too, so his sacrifice was totally in vain.
yeah,
God, it
yeah.
couldn't have been handled worse.
I couldn't agree more. And to bring back Palpatine is simply the laziest
Oh
thing I've
God,
ever seen a large film studio do. I can't even conceptualize how fucking like spineless it is for J.J. Abrams to have been like, "Yep, Palpatine is back, and he was Snoke the whole time." If I see that nigga, I'm going to beat his ass. Like I don't.
it's like,
This shit
it's like
upsets me.
look. It's hard to think of a worse way to handle it. Like it's hard. Like
Yeah,
I can't think of
no, it
like a
is.
way that would actually be worse than that. And it's like Jesus Christ,
Yeah,
that's terrible.
on every level too, not just not just Palpatine, but like on every level, it was handled the exact opposite way that you think it would. Like everything from like the dyad thing with Kylo Ren and them being like fucking like soul intertwined to Kylo Ren's like touching, but albeit like in my opinion, completely unnecessary return to the good side and and just like the setup in the first film of the Knights of Ren, and then the Knights of Ren finally showing up in the final film and
It's,
then doing fucking nothing. Like
it's
it was too bad.
I've I struggle to think of a trilogy series, whatever, that had so many setups with no payoff whatsoever. Like the Finn
Yeah,
one, to bring it back to that shit. There are so many ways. Like having an ex stormtrooper as part of the team is a brilliant idea. It is a great idea. And
amazing.
honestly,
Yeah,
though, I think they dropped the ball right away in the fact that he was
yeah,
an ex stormtrooper who didn't kill anyone or didn't participate in combat. Like, no, like he quit before. Like that's not
yeah,
quite as strong of a
yeah.
redemption arc as someone who was like an
I
actual
agree.
bad person. Like, yeah, I thought they should have went ahead and had him literally
Yeah,
pull the trigger on that. And
at
also
least
with
one person.
at least one person. Then and then like in the Rise of Skywalker when they're falling in the quicksand, he goes, Ray has something to tell you, and he never tells her the rest of the movie. Like, why was that put in the movie? Like at some point, you know, like
What was actually the
and
purpose?
or even Ray getting that lightsaber. That
Yeah,
so I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen The Empire Strikes Back, all nine of you, but Luke loses his lightsaber like on a
on
gas
Cloud City.
giant. Yeah, like he's
Yeah,
hanging from like this metallic outstand into a gas giant, like basically dropping it into
yeah.
Jupiter. And this fish-eyed bitch has it, and she's like, "How did you get that?" And she goes, "That's a long story." Yeah, it's gotta be. I want to know that
It's an
story, and they never
incredible
tell
story.
it to us.
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah,
it's just like it angers me. Like, and it's not like
yeah.
Star Wars nerd. Oh, they stole from my childhood shit. It's just like,
Right.
are there any writers in this room, any competent writers in this room
Yeah,
that should know better
yeah,
than this?
yeah. And that was the problem, that this film was written by the executives. J.J. Abrams wrote like, and Ryan Johnson. I feel so bad for him because I think what the problem was, and I think that ultimately, like, I blame him for this, is that who the fuck, they should have just given him his own trilogy, because I don't know why he thought in a million years that it would be like a wise thing to do. It would be well received for him to come in the middle of a trilogy, the second film, and completely like that's when he wanted to like uproot everything and flip it upside its head. Like obviously there should have been some foresight there that that was going to piss a lot of people off. And I feel like if it would have just been him starting with his own trilogy and writing that out from scratch, I think would have been a little bit better received. But the Force Awakens sold a lot of fans on the promise of a new sort
Yeah,
of like, not a new experience, but more of the same. Like let's the Force Awakens sold everybody on more of the same, just with new
yeah,
characters,
and
just
we
with
would
new
have been cool with
actors.
that. We would have been
We
cool
would
with
have been
that.
we would have been fine with it. Like, it'd be some issues, but we would have all paid money. Would have all they would have it would have been good. They would have all been well received. And it just sucks that Ryan Johnson gave us a taste of something different, like right in the middle.
The biggest crime is what you mentioned, is that there was no foresight into this at all. Which is stunning to me, that with a property
It's
as
actually crazy.
big and as important and as beloved as Star Wars, you just went in
Yeah,
with audibles all three times. And
it's
so
insane.
like Terminator is a good example of this. So James Cameron had a dream one night of
Mm,
a of being chased by a skeleton that was a robot, and it terrified
mm,
him. And so from that dream, he came up with the idea of Terminator, and he made Terminator One.
mm,
And so Terminator One, James Cameron wasn't like a well-known guy at the time, and Terminator One was a pretty low-budget film for the era and stuff, and it was a surprise hit.
mm.
People loved it, and it
Yeah.
crushed, and it's still a classic to this day. And so James Cameron said, "Okay, all right, well, I actually have more to tell on this story. Like, I want to finish this
Yeah.
story." And so
Yeah.
he made Terminator 2, which was, one of the greatest movies
Even
of all
bigger.
time. And so
Yep.
you're like, all right, that's cool. Now, every Terminator afterward was done in
Yeah.
exactly reverse. They like instead of saying I have a story to tell, I'm going to make a movie, they say I want to make a movie, someone write a story about it. And that's what
Someone
happened
write a
with the
story
Star
about it.
Wars sequels. And it's apparently
Yeah.
obvious that no one had any direction on it. Like you can
Yeah.
switch directors as long as the story's
Mhm.
already done and then let the director direct the
Exactly.
story. But they didn't even like God,
They
it's
didn't
just
even
like
have a
it's
story.
unforgivable. It's
It,
unforgivable.
they didn't even have a story. Yeah, everybody involved should have been like Bob Iger was the CEO of Disney at the time, I think, right?
I don't know if it was the
I
time, but
don't
it was
know, whoever was, because like I know that the CEO of the Bob Iger himself has been like respected in the business world as like one of the guys that sort of like was pioneered the new rising of Disney. And if he was involved in that, I really think that like he should have been fired because, like you said, that is the single-handedly one of the largest IPs in
in human
cinematic history.
history.
Like
Like
it's
so,
top three. Like it's actually top three. And so not having a plan for a main trilogy in which you're putting $200 million per film into production, not having a story to tell is mind-bogglingly. I could spend 100 years trying to figure out what was going through people's heads, and I never figure it out because it's unintelligibly, profoundly ridiculous.
it's
Like
ugh. I don't get it. I don't get it. I